Chair Lee, we're ready to begin.
Good morning. Welcome to the November 18, 2022 regular meeting of the San Francisco Ethics Commission. Our minutes will reflect that this is a hybrid meeting. It's being held pursuant to the 45th supplement to mayoral proclamation declaring existence of a local emergency dated February 25, 2020, and is being held subject to the conditions of this proclamation. Today's meeting is being live cablecast on SFGov TV2 and streamed live online on sfgovtv.org/ethicslive. And for public comment, members of the public may attend in person or may participate by phone or the WebEx platform as explained in our agenda document. And moderator, can you please explain how the remote public comment will be handled today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public comment will be available on each item on this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. For those attending in person, opportunities to speak during the public comment period will be made available there in room 408, City Hall. For those attending remotely, public comment period can also be provided via phone call by calling 1-415-655-0001. Again, the phone number is 1-415-655-0001. Access code is 2488-984-8978. Again, the access code is 2488-984-8978, followed by the pound sign. Then press pound again to join as an attendee. For callers, you will hear a beep when you are connected to the meeting. You will automatically be muted and in listening mode only. When your item of interest comes up, dial *3 to raise your hand and to be added to the public comment line. You will then hear you have raised your hand to ask a question. Please wait until the host calls on you. The line will be silent as you wait your turn to speak. Ensure that you're in a quiet location. Before you speak, mute the sound of any equipment around you, including television, radio, or computer. It is especially important that you mute your computer if you are watching via the web link to prevent feedback and echo when you speak. When the system message says your line has been unmuted, this is your turn to speak. You will hear staff say, "Welcome, caller." We encourage you to state your name clearly. As soon as you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you change your mind and wish to withdraw yourself from the public comment line, press *3 again. You will hear the system say, "You have lowered your hand." Once your 3 minutes has expired, staff will thank you and mute you. You will hear your line has been muted. Attendees who wish to speak during other public comment periods may stay on the line and listen for the next public comment opportunity and should raise their hands to enter the public comment line by pressing *3 when their next item of interest comes up.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Public comment may also be submitted in writing and public comment will also be submitted in writing and will be shared with the commission after this meeting has concluded and will be included as part of the official meeting file. Written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Once again, written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, moderator. I now call the meeting to order. Please call item number 1, which is roll call, please.
Commissioners, please verbally indicate your presence by saying aye after your name is called. Commissioner Bush.
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang. Aye. Sorry. Commissioner Finlev.
Aye.
Chair Lee.
Aye.
And Commissioner Romano. Chair Lee, with 4 members present and accounted for, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bush is participating remotely today, and Commissioner Romano is excused from this meeting. Now let's call agenda item number 2, which is public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda. Moderator, can you see if there's any speakers waiting in queue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For remote participants, if you joined the meeting earlier to listen to the proceedings, now is the time to get in line to speak. Members of the public who are already online and wish to provide public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda under item number 2 should now dial *3 or raise your hand in WebEx, if you have not already done so, to be added to the public comment line. Once you are in the queue and standing by, the system will prompt you when it's your turn to speak. We ask that you please address your comments to the Commission as a whole and not to individual members. Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have a caller in the queue. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Commissioners, my name is Francisco da Costa. We, San Franciscans, fought very hard to establish the Sunshine Task Force and the Ethics Commission. And we also fought hard for the Controller's Office. In recent years, the Sunshine Task Force and the Ethics Commission has let us down. Y'all may make excuses that y'all were understaffed or the issues that y'all were dealing with too convoluted. But whoever leads the Sunshine Task Force or the Ethics Commission, because they go hand in hand, they have failed us. And right before the ballot measures, we got all sorts of very, very complicated issues. We got a supervisor trying to muddy the waters. And we, the people, had to suffer. During the pandemic and even now, not too many people have the time nor the patience to listen to the long, drawn Ethics Commission meetings, beating the horse dead, reviving it again and again. So I'm requesting you, commissioners, if we do not do the right thing quickly, we will lose it. We will lose our standards as we have lost it on the national level. We will lose it in San Francisco. In fact, we are losing it. Recently, the FBI had to go after another nonprofit, and it's in the newspaper, and every time it's in the newspaper, I get many calls. I can't say too much. People trust me because they know they can call me and I can say something about the issue, but we are all working very hard to maintain some standards, but we are losing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please stand by where we're checking to see if there's any further callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Thank you. Public comment is closed for agenda item number 2. I now call for a consent calendar. As noted in the agenda, there will be no separate discussions on the consent calendar item unless a request is made by a commission member or member of the public in attendance, in which event the matter should be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate item. And if any commissioner asks to discuss the item, that item will be taken up following action on the consent calendar items on the regular calendar for discussion and action. Does any commissioners want to discuss any items from the consent? Okay. Commissioner Bush?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Since no one wished to take any items out, I just want to make one correction. Under item 4 for the proposed calendar, the proposed time, the proposed starting time should be at 10 a.m., not 9:30, which is a typo. Ms. Moderator, can you check and see if there's any public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking this. Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are callers in the queue who wish to discuss any consent calendar item. If there are callers, please stand by. Oof. We have one caller in the queue. Please stand by. Thank you, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
I do not want to speak on this issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you can hit star 3 to lower your hand. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Thank you. Public comment is closed. Commissioners, do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar items 3, resolution on continuation of remote hybrid commission meetings, item 4, Ethics Commission regular meeting schedule for calendar year 2023, item 5, Director of Enforcement's report highlighting enforcement division operations, item 6, Executive Director's report highlighting various departmental programs and operations. Item 7, Ethics Commission Annual Report draft for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Do I see a motion?
I move to adopt the items on the consent calendar, and I think, just for clarity, I think item 5 doesn't have an action item. That's just for information, I think. So I think, well, I guess it doesn't make a difference. I move to adopt the consent calendar, including the items that have individual action items attached to them.
Second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and second. Roll call, please.
On the motion to adopt the consent calendar, Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang,
Aye.
Commissioner Finlev,
Aye.
and Chair Lee.
Aye.
Madam Chair, with 4 votes in the affirmative and no votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners. I now call agenda item number 8, which is discussion and possible action on the Executive Director's recruitment process. I just want to open with a brief report to my fellow commissioners after our discussion at the October meeting. It was agreed that we would form a search committee chaired by me and with Vice Chair Bush, also with alternate members who would be participating at future committee activities. The committee will be noticed, will be public noticeable, and it would involve working with the city and any other activities to get the word out, which would include looking for executive search firm, conducting listening sessions with stakeholders and community members, help recruitment, help spread the word, to bring it back to the commission. The commission will, as a whole, will decide on the next process of reviewing candidates, selecting finalists, and interviewing candidates, and selecting the ultimate candidate. I also want to report that after our meeting, I had a meeting with Deputy Director Howard from DHR to follow up on the Commission's recommendation to start the executive search firm. Her team had told me that they will be publishing the notice, and we were to have some type of update today. However, that deadline was pushed to November 28th instead of today. So we would need to wait until the 28th to see if there's any search firm who submitted the bid. But I understand the RFQ was sent out. So we're hoping that there will be some search firms who would be interested in working with us on this important task. We, Vice Chair Bush and I had also separately begun the task of our listening session, starting out with the staff, because as we all know, a successful and great leader surrounds herself with very talented and committed staff members. So we have met with the commission staff, and I want to thank the members of the team for their frankness, for their commitment, for the honesty, and from the very well thought out recommendations, sharing their perspectives and the insight in how we can all work together to move the commission forward and build upon the strong foundation that that Director Pelham has built upon. So with that, there's really not much else we can share unless Vice Chair Bush, you want to have anything to add before other commissioners want to share their perspectives. Commissioner Bush, do you want to have anything to say?
Yes, I do. I'd like to say that the senior staff that I met with was very forthcoming and had good ideas on how to advance the agenda of the mission of the commission, and that those proposals were very specific and provided a route for us to use with their cooperation. So I'm grateful to them for having given their time and their brains to this effort. I think that one of the things that was apparent to me is that we need people to tell us what the commission is not doing now. It's not enough to just tell us where we can improve, but we need to know what do they see that's not being done. For example, we don't spend a lot of time at the Ethics Commission on issues involving the complaints of, I'm trying to think of the words, the complaints involving ignoring the public when it comes to public comment, which sometimes does happen. And so I wanted to know, do they think this is a problem? So as a series of things like that, I'll try and memorialize them in an email to my fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bush. Before I ask my fellow commissioners if they have anything to add, I just want to run down the current schedule and the current process, so we have more information from last month's meeting. Because we are operating on a very, very tight schedule, the executive director is due to leave us on January 23rd. So we have less than 3 months to hire the next ED, and we're doing everything we can. So now that we look at the cutoff for the search firm on November 28th, and assuming that we can select that firm, the successful bid on that day, it was strongly recommended by the DHR folks that the team, the search firm, would have everything ready to go, to roll out, which would include what the commission would want them to get the work done, spread the word, put out the notices, all the necessary paperwork and everything else. So the two things that we want from this commission on the search firm to do, that's why they're basing on that to submit the proposal, would be we want this to be a national search, would be a very extensive search, which would be very inclusive, that would reflect the population of the city that this commission serve. The second thing is we want to make sure that the community engagement component is very extensive. So those are the two additional requirements to the typical San Francisco RFQ process in looking for executive search firm. Now that we know the earliest date that we have on a search firm will be the 28th, which is in a week and a half, it would be, we would need to decide how this commission as a body can select the firm right away instead of waiting for the December meeting, which is about 2 weeks from there. Now, there are a couple of options. One, we can delegate the search committee to make that selection if there are two, and if they are highly qualified. Or we can wait until December 9th meeting, or we can call a special meeting just to select the firm on the 28th, just to cut down on the time so that they can really hit the ground on the day on the 28th. So that's number one option that we have. The second option, as I said, is leave it to the committee that is publicly noticed to select a firm, so that we would have that out of the way instead of waiting until the December full commission meeting. The other aspects of getting the firm is the firm would need from us, no, I should rephrase it. We would want the firm to have from us, number one, organizations and groups that we would want them to outreach to, because the Ethics Commission is a very unique body, and it is not just an executive firm. We're not looking for just an executive director. We're looking for we're basically looking for Pelham 202, 201. So we would want to have a list of organizations that we personally know, professional groups, and other organizations and professional groups that we want them to help spread the word, so to speak, reach out for potential candidates. So that's number one. The second thing is there are job descriptions that the city uses, but we would want to shape that job description to what we want in addition to the typical executive qualifications that we want to see in the executive director. So we would want to provide to the executive firm the kind of ED, the characters, the qualifications, and the experience that we want them to have. So those are the information that if we can provide it to the executive firm right when they're selected, then they will know how they can proceed. Pardon me, one more thing is we would also want to provide to them a list of community and stakeholder groups that we would want them to reach out to facilitate these listening sessions for us. So those are the three things that it would be good if we can have them all ready by the time they're selected, so we would not need to miss any precious time. So those are the updates that I have, and love to hear my colleagues' recommendations and insights.
I think that the job description that we already have is a great starting point. There are a few things that we recommend that I was thinking about. I don't know if this is the appropriate space to kind of bring them up, but I do think that, I mean, there's a section also about what the vision for the commission is, or I think that's like on the third page. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's something we need to think deeply about where we're going, so that then we can properly present kind of the job description and what we expect the executive director's help with moving forward. So I mean, I think it's something we can do concurrently, but I do think that we need to think about where we're going as we pick an executive director.
Madam Chair, may I? Great. Thank you so much for all the work you and Commissioner Bush are doing on this. I really appreciate the sessions you're doing with the staff and the folks and the public. I had a couple questions about just the timeline. Is your idea that the firms will provide proposals on November 28th and that the subcommittee will pick one of them on the same day? Because my thought was that DHR would review the proposals, hopefully recommend who they think is best, and that would probably take more than the same day that the proposals come in. So that's one question I have for you.
My understanding from DHR is they would not recommend any firms. They would just provide us with any bidders who meet the qualifications. And it is not likely that we would have a lot of firms to choose from. So it is still up to us to select, if there's only one firm, if they meet the guidelines, then it makes it much easier. Should there be more than one, then it would be up to us to decide. And my recommendation is, since this is just a firm, they're basically doing the administrative work for us. So it's not, for me, is I would not want us to have to wait until December to get this firm going. And if the committee can just look at the firm and just say, okay, we're going to be working with DHR to get them started right on the 28th, or maybe the day later, so we don't miss the couple of weeks. My concern is if we wait until December just to select a firm that's doing administrative work for us, they're not doing anything that we would not be overseeing anyway. So my recommendation is let's just get the firm selected, and they will definitely be at the December meeting that we could ask other questions, but at least they would have a 2 weeks head start, so to speak, to get things going, to get the public, the notices out and everything else, because we're hitting a holiday season, and January is coming up really fast.
Right. No, I appreciate the urgency. I think we all want to do this quickly. I don't think we're going to hire a new ED before Director Pelham retires, unfortunately, or departs, unfortunately. So if there's more than one search firm that responds, I'm not sure it makes sense to target you picking one of them the same day they come in. I would think there should be more time to evaluate the responses. Maybe staff will weigh in if DHR won't. So that's one thought. You also mentioned the subcommittee, and you said publicly noticed picking one. Do you mean that the subcommittee would notice a meeting where it would kind of discuss the search committees and then pick one?
Because my understanding of the committee is we have to notice everything that the committee does. So let's just say if there are more than one firm, we would need to notice it, and two of us would be discussing the proposals, and from there, hopefully we'll select one. But if the commission as a whole decides to wait until the December meeting, we can discuss that too.
Right.
But everything that the committee does as a committee is noticeable.
Okay, and I'm not suggesting we should wait till December. I'm just trying to understand the process. So then, is your idea that the subcommittee would notice a meeting for November 28th,
Yeah.
the same day that the responses come in, and then would pick someone that same day?
On the 29th. But we will be checking with DHR, to see how solid the 28th was, because the 18th was supposed to be the date. So if they think that they will be able to get us the bids on the 28th, then we will have a scheduled meeting, because the scheduled meeting can also be canceled, right? It can also be canceled. And I just don't want us to wait until the 28th and then schedule a meeting and miss a couple more days and everything. Again, the search firm serves as our, I would call it they're doing the legwork only.
Right. No, I understand. That all makes a lot of sense. And I can't imagine that I would have strong feelings about which search firm, as long as
But I
they're
have no
all,
idea who they are.
right, assuming they're
These ones are-
qualified. And it sounds like at the subcommittee meeting, if I was so inclined, I'd be able to call in and say, hey, I like this firm, or I don't like that firm. Is that right?
Deputy City Attorney, please.
Commissioners, Deputy City Attorney Brad Russi, yes, if you attended the meeting, it would then be a meeting of the commission, because there'd be a quorum present, and it would need to be noticed as a meeting of the full commission. That could be done. I mean, it's not,
No, I see. My thinking is just, like I said, I can't imagine I would feel strongly about which firm, but it sounds like if we're committing to doing it this way, then Commissioner Flores Fang and I are basically not able to weigh in on it, which strikes me as, it's a thing I'm thinking about. And maybe I need to process how much that matters to me. I'll keep thinking about that. Another thought that I want to put out, though, is that you mentioned the search firm would, I think you said, organize listening sessions. I think we need listening sessions. I'm not sure that's something the search firm would do, because the listening session, I think, is to inform us about what we want from the ED in terms of kind of what the job description should look like and who we want to hire. I think the search firm will just be spreading that description as far as it can. I'm not sure it's within, and I just don't know, maybe DHR can tell us. I don't see that the search firm would be organizing kind of listening tours. Maybe they would, but that strikes me as something that the commission does, not the search firm. I don't know if anyone here can speak to that or
Maybe
knows either way.
maybe I can clarify. When I say to assist us with these listening tours, listening sessions, because under the city ED or whatever search firms there's always a community engagement component. So it's up to the commissions, the departments to decide how extensive that community engagement is. Our recommendation, based on last commission meeting, is we need to really engage with our stakeholders. And let's just say that there are 10 groups that we want to meet with between now and the selection of the finalists to this, to the search. It would not be fair to ask the staff to help us organize these meetings. And if the search firm is paid, is supposed to carry out the community engagement component, my sense is, then they will help organize, which means they can organize the meeting sites, all the technical things. Again, just the managerial, administrative work, we are attending. Whether it's a commission with an alternate, always two people, to meet with these groups, whether they are nonprofits, city family, whatever it is. And that's why we need to give them the list, because they wouldn't know. So when I say community engagement, they are not going to listen. We are listening. What they're doing is they're organizing the meetings to make sure that they're noticeable. They will meet all the notice requirements. Basically, they were acting as our staff. Instead of us asking the staff to do all this additional work, they will be doing all the work. We are doing the listening. They're just making sure that people get the time, get the place, reserved and everything else. That's it. So they are not, we are in charge of hearing from the community, dialogue with our stakeholders, selecting the candidates, and recruitment, because I'm reminded over and over again, Director Pelham did not come from the executive firm. She came from friends and supporters of the Ethics Commission who knew that, hey, we have an excellent person who could really guide you. And when she came, the rest is history. So I don't think the executive firm will be doing the type of executive search that we traditionally think about, because this is a very unique commission. And we are dealing with a very unique universe of potential candidates.
Okay, well, I assume what you've laid out will be part of the job, part of the request for proposals I've submitted. So I guess we'll see when the search firms respond to what extent they think that's something that they'll be able to do. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Would I be able to one more question. Even if I'm not on the subcommittee, would I be able to see their proposals as they come in? Is that public?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I think that, don't they? The committee can share with the commissioners once we receive now, I don't know who these firms are, and I don't know how the city operates in terms of executive firms, and I think that we all dealt with, headhunting firms and everything else. So definitely you can look at the proposals, but I think the only thing that DHR does is to make sure that they meet the city's minimum requirements.
Right.
That's it.
No, I understand. I have my own personal requirements, so that's why I'd like to see them. That all makes sense to me, and I think given that, I'm fine with the subcommittee publicly noticing a meeting for whatever date you think makes sense to select a firm. That's, speaking obviously for me personally. And again, I want to thank you and Commissioner Bush for all the work you're doing on this.
I'm also in favor of that. I just wanted to make that comment. I defer to you and Commissioner Bush.
And then I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say
That's
one more
okay.
thing. I don't know if you were done.
No, I was done. I just wanted to piggyback off of that just so that we could close that item, so that you know also that I'm not opposed. And also thank you and Commissioner Bush for kind of your extensive efforts until this point, which we know were time consuming, I'm sure.
And I just want to remind everyone that the reason why we have an alternate member is so that, there may be issues that you really, really want to work on, and please let us know. Let me know, because one of us can get off, and then one of you can step in to, share your areas of expertise in that particular area. So again, this is a team effort. We just want to make sure that, we're doing everything right. But at the same time, moving on a very accelerated schedule.
That's great. There are two things that I think the whole commission should be involved in, and that's reviewing all the initial resumes, and now I'm talking about once we've selected a firm, once we get actual applications. So I guess I'm doing the order backwards. The actual job description that the search firm ends up sending out, I think we should all be involved in one way or the other. Understand that the search firms got some kind of preliminary description in order for them to create their proposals to us. That makes sense. But whatever we end up giving them, we should all weigh in on. And then once we start getting applications from candidates, hopefully there'll be so many resumes we'll have to triage, but I don't think we need to decide that now. But I don't envision a world where only the subcommittee looks at the resumes. I would like to look at every single resume that comes in. So that's just something I wanted to put out there. Because I think, Chair, you had mentioned the concept of the subcommittee kind of wetting it and then sharing the finalists with the rest of the commission. That's not how I would like it to proceed. I think we should all look at all the resumes, unless it ends up that there are so many that's just not realistic. But I don't think we're going to get that many. I don't think we'll get so many resumes that it's impossible for us to look at them all, or at least to have the opportunity to look at them all. And that's it.
I'd like to hear the other commissioners' thought, because, again, anytime when it involves 3 members of any activities, it is a public meeting. So a public meeting means that we would be in the room looking at tons of resumes. My
Madam Chair?
recommendation, if I can finish, my recommendation is usually, because we just went through this, I just went through it with another executive search. The firm's job is not to say, this is a good person, you need to look at this person. The firm's job at the level 1 is to make sure that of the hopefully hundreds of resumes, the folks who absolutely do not meet the qualification don't need to get to our table, our desk. For instance, if we're looking for someone who has minimum of 1 year of experience of working, and this person has never worked a day in her or his life, that resume is not going to make it to the thing. If someone doesn't have the, whatever the minimum qualification that we set, because our minimum qualification is very low. We don't want to exclude anybody. Now, if you want to sit through and review all these resumes, and there are people who send in 20 pages of how wonderful they are without working a day in their life. If it is the desire of the commission to have all of us to look at the preliminary applications, we can talk about it. But my strong recommendation is the way the search firms and the way I envision their job is to screen out those who are absolutely not qualified. There are folks who just use opportunity to talk about how wonderful they are. If you want to read that, fine, but maybe we can do it in the committee level that you can, take my place. But the second level is the one that all of us need to be engaged. That is the level that the search firm had put together from round 1. They weed out the absolutely not qualified applications. The second batch, it could be 10, it could be 100. The second batch are the ones who meet the qualifications. They make no judgment. They meet the qualifications that we set forth. Now that level would be from there on is all of us involvement. That is when we look at all these things, and we have to schedule special meetings, because when we did that with the police department, we set out like many hours to look over that batch. From that batch, the commission will decide if there are finalists that we want to personally meet. From reading the resumes, we want to personally meet them. either virtual, because we're doing a national search, or in person. So in that, in the proposal for the executive firm, it was included that, there need to be budget set aside for a national candidate or candidates. So my inclination is there are 3 or even 4 levels. First level, without round 1, round 2, round 3, and round 4, the final interview. My recommendation is let us all as a commission get engaged as a full body from round 2 on. Now, if you want to get involved with round 1, my recommendation is let's continue to do that as a committee matter, and then you can use my spot to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's not what I'm suggesting. And my understanding is that we don't need to have a committee meeting to review resumes. I mean, literally just looking at the resumes. From the last meeting, my understanding is that we can all be mailed every single resume individually and look at them at home as long as we want. Am I right? That's not an issue.
Deputy City Attorney Brad Ressa, yes, you could receive the resumes as long as you don't communicate amongst yourselves about the contents of them and wait till a meeting to do so, then that would be fine.
Thank you. So that's all I meant, Madam Chair. I thought you were envisioning a situation where the subcommittee would weed the qualified candidates, and then only the commission as a whole would only look at what the subcommittee considered the finalists.
No.
Right. So I think
No.
all the commissioners should be given every single resume, and they can ignore them if they want. They can look at them if they want. Not in a meeting, but just to have. And then we have, I guess, a closed committee meeting to discuss who we like. And I think you and I may be saying the same thing, other than I think there's no reason not to provide every commissioner every resume, because we can do that just by email.
The only reason why I suggested the committee to be involved from round 1 on is to make sure that only the completely unqualified will be weeded out. That's it. So again, from round 2 on, everything involves the entire commission. The committee does not decide who makes it to the final list. The entire commission decides who makes it to the final list. And we, as a whole, decide how many people should be in that semifinal list. So I just want to make it completely clear. The only thing that the commission as a whole does not get involved with, in my opinion, is the round 1, when they have to weed out all kinds of applications. But even at that level, my recommendation is the committee would work with the search firm to make sure, completely sure that they do not weed out anyone who should not be weed out, just by accident. That's it. So I want to make it really, really clear. The committee does not select a final list. The commission selects, reviews the applications and selects the slate of finalists to be interviewed, and then the commission will vote to hire the executive director as a whole.
Yeah, that all makes sense, but I still think all the commissioners can provide all the resumes. They can ignore them if they want, but there's no reason not to provide that to them.
So how does that deal with the privacy issue? If
The commissioners are all entitled to see the applications. I mean, they'd be considered, of course, you have to hold them in confidence. You're going to guarantee the applicant's confidentiality, so you shouldn't discuss them publicly, or you have to maintain documents in a secure location, but you could all see them. That's no problem.
And then one last point, Madam Chair, you mentioned providing the search firms with a list of organizations to reach out to. I think that's wonderful. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I don't think we need commission action for that. I would assume commissioners can just provide that to the search firm. I would think maybe I'm being glib about that, but I don't see why that would require commission action. I guess I'm looking at Deputy City Attorney.
I'm sorry, was the question whether if after reviewing the resumes, you could provide the search firm comments or?
No, even before that, I think the Madam Chair was envisioning that the commission or the subcommittee would give the search firms guidance as to certain organizations to reach out to advertise the vacancy. I think it's a great idea. I don't think that needs to be a commission activity. I think we can just give the search firm kind of, hey, you should reach out to Kogel, that's a government ethics group.
I just meant that it would be easier if we can all collect our, from a Rolodex, different groups that we want them to search to. So instead of coming from 5 of us separately, it should just come from us singly. Here's a list of 20 groups. Instead of like, here are 5 and here's another 5 from, Commissioner Bush. So for me, it's everything, if we can streamline to make the work easier for everybody involved. That's all I meant.
Yeah.
So instead of, yes, all of us have no groups and organizations, but let's streamline it so that the committee working on, on behalf of the commission, in directing on the administrative side of the search firm's work to make sure that they have the list of organizations that we want them to specifically target. They have the group of folks that we want them to specifically organize and facilitate community listening sessions on. That's it. So that's...
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay. Commissioner Bush, do you have any other comments? Anything to add?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm sort of remote away from the computer. I just wanted to underscore the fact that our ethics executive director and our commission has responsibilities that don't exist in other city departments. For example, we are required, when we receive a complaint, to refer it to the district attorney and the city attorney, and that they, in turn, are to return any finding that they make or any action that they've chosen to make or not make, and let us know what's going on. Well, that's a relationship between our agency and 2 other agencies that is unique, to my knowledge, compared to other city departments. And the same thing goes when it comes to the freedom of expression, and so that's a third area. In addition to all of those, we are the only agency that can take things directly to the voters and put it on the ballot. Anyone else would have to go through a variety of steps for that to happen. And so when we look at people who might serve as executive director, it would be good to know if they have any experience in drafting laws or in proposing measures to go before the voters. So those are not exactly caveats, but aspects of the job that would not normally be seen by DHR as they're drafting requirements. And when we hired Leanne, I was involved as a member of the community, and there were a number of very good candidates in addition to Leanne, including one of the people who helped draft the creation of the Ethics Commission, including an acting director of the Ethics Commission, and of course, Leanne herself.
Commissioner Bush?
Yes.
We need to respect people's privacy, so if you have any comments, make sure that it doesn't imply on any particular individual.
Thank you. That's a good thing to keep in mind. The ones I was thinking of have all sadly died since that time. But the fact is that we are likely to get inquiries from people who have very strong credentials, but perhaps not in areas that we are expecting. So I would not limit ourselves in what we can consider as we see these. And I would hope that we would also keep in mind the unique role of the Ethics Commission as we move forward with this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I do have a question. Given what Commissioner Bush just said about us being very specific and really curating this description and our requests, by when would we like to have a revised job description? I know that you're going to notice the meeting for the 28th, and by then we should be prepared, or the 29th, I'm sorry, where you and Commissioner Bush will proceed in selecting an agency, but I imagine, do we want to have the job description prepared by that day?
It would be helpful. I think that's why it would be great if each one of us, if we're interested, to put together a job description that you would like to see in this person, and that's why it's separated into different categories. All the requirements that you want in this person, and the preferred or suggested qualifications, so that it doesn't weed out anybody. So as one of us said, if Michelle Obama applies for this job, she may not meet the other legal requirements, but she definitely would be a great candidate that we don't want to, miss out. So those are the things that we can put in 3 buckets. The one that is absolutely the essential qualifications that we require in this person, the integrity, a certain level of professional experience. But I would say, because we, as Commissioner Bush said, we are a very unique commission, and that universe is very, very small. And I think the previous commission was very, very lucky to find and ultimately recommend, and then the commission appointed the director. But it's best for us to cast a wider net. If anyone who meets the kind of a person that we want in the ED, not in the quantitative measure, but the essence of who we want as the director. So that's why it would be great if the job description would be the job description would be in 2 or 3 buckets, what we must have and what we would prefer to have. I would think that, background in ethics law would be a preferred, not a requirement, because that you can pick up.
And do you want that by the 29th?
Deputy City Attorney, can we have all these recommendations from the fellow commissioners, and then we will put that together in a job description without a public notice discussion? Can we do that?
It would certainly be, I think, more transparent if you had a meeting where you took input from the public and the commissioners and
On the
provided
job
that
description?
guidance to on what the job profile would be. And I don't know, I got the impression from Commissioner Finlove that he was interested in having the commission take action to approve the final job description. So I don't think there's any problem with you all submitting your proposals to one commissioner and have that commissioner try to integrate them into one document for approval at a meeting, if that's what you're proposing to do.
So we would need to have a special meeting on the 29th to approve the job description so that we can share it with the executive search firm so they could publish it.
If the commission wishes to take
If we
action
wish
as a
to.
body to approve the final job announcement, you'll have to have a meeting to do that. And I would just, I mean, this is not really legal advice, but I'm just going to tell you from my experience with these search firms, they're likely going to come to your meeting in December and have a lot of questions for you all. They'll need direction. You can provide the job announcement then, give them the direction that they need. It's unlikely they're going to be able to turn something around in a week, basically. But that's just my experience from having worked on with the Library Commission on the city librarian recruitment. It was a process. You're going to have to push them if you want them to move really quickly, basically.
We, again, if everything falls in place, can we ask them to start putting together the organizations that we want them to outreach to without the job description, but maybe with one paragraph, SFEC looking for a dynamic leader, who can meet, competing challenges, something really simple to let them know that we're looking for a very high caliber executive. And then when they come to December commission meeting, we would have the job description discussed and approved. Then they could take that and then publish it the second time.
So I don't see any problem with that. If once you have this firm selected, if the commissioners want to send the firm the organizations they wish to be noticed of the position, there's no problem with that.
And may I just add one quick point? I understood from our last meeting that we weren't opposed to using the last job description, at least as a starting point. And I don't know if, for drafting purposes and given the timeline, if it would be productive or more efficient maybe to start there and then maybe remove or revise things, update things that need to be updated instead of starting anew. And we could, I think that we could work off of that document, even in the buckets that you recommended, Chair Lee, where I think a lot of the essentials are already there. And I imagine that the previous commission went through the same process for even presenting that job description. So it is something that the public has seen. So I think that maybe if we work off of that job description and then contribute other essentials or other desired, that might also help us move things along quickly.
I think there is some specific language that they have to use too for the job description. So I think for us, the only contribution from this commission will be the specifics, because for that job description, it wasn't very specific, and 6 years have passed, and we know what a visionary leader can do, so that we can really build on, the specifics. And that's why the different buckets to add on to what they have. And of course, to bring it updated to be more relevant would be great. So if we can come back on December 9th, to have those recommendations that we want to see, not recommendation, the qualifications that we want to add to the job description, so that we can share it with the search firm at the December meeting. But meanwhile, we should have a general, and I think the committee can do that. We don't need the commission to approve. We can just say, hey, we're looking for, dynamic leader. Do we need the approval of the commission to do that?
No. I mean, assuming that the commission's okay with the subcommittee taking that action, I don't think there's any problem with that.
So, Madam Chair, to make that happen, can staff work with Madam Chair to present to the commission a job description for the December regular meeting that we can actually vote on and move forward?
We've already have one from the director. She's already sent it to us a couple of months ago when she announced her resignation. So we're going to be working together.
Right, but I mean incorporating the changes that you would like, that the commissioners want to put on the existing job description. I just want to make sure that at the next commission meeting, we're actually prepared to vote on a job description to close that item.
Yeah, and if any one of you have any suggestions, please, let me know.
Okay, that makes sense. I had understood that we needed to like make recommendations on the record, but I'm happy to send them individually if I have any. Thank you.
Shirley,
Oh, yes.
Shirley.
Yes, Vice Chair.
I wanted to recommend that we also reach out to former ethics commissioners, since they would have some working knowledge of the work of the commission, as well as past senior staff, because there have been a number of senior staff who've been excellent, but who moved on to other fields of endeavor, and who might want to consider coming back to take the helm of the Ethics Commission. So when we're talking about an outreach, I'm not thinking only of groups, but also a targeted outreach based on former ethics commissioners and former ethics staff. Thank you.
There's nothing to preclude any one of us from reaching out to anybody to spread the word, to encourage people to take a look at this position. But I do want to caution us, if you know of any good candidate specific potential applicants, I think that we need to be very, very careful to make this a very transparent and fair process so that no one would feel that they have a certain advantage or disadvantage just because they know anybody currently on this commission. So I do think that if you know of anyone who's interested, let them apply through the process. If they have any questions, go to the executive search firm. That's what they're there for. So I just want us to be mindful of that.
Shirley, on that note, I had a question about whether anybody would ever need to be recused. I'm not sure if this is something that we discussed, but I guess not. I mean, it seems counterintuitive where it's like if I'm recommending my friend, do I need to be recused from that vote?
You would need to disclose the relationship on the
Okay.
record, and assuming you have no financial ties to this person, you could vote, assuming you can be fair still, of course.
Great, of course. Thank you.
Okay, anything else that we should discuss? Otherwise, let's open up for public comment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue who wish to comment on item number 8, discussion, possible action on executive director recruitment process. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have a caller in the queue. Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
So, Commissioner Francisco da Costa again, what I want to state is that our San Francisco Ethics Commission is unique. And this commission has not done its job well when it came to certain things. Y'all have chosen to listen to some entities that y'all should not have to listen to. Y'all know who I'm referring to. I don't want to make it very clear. Y'all have chosen to bring in people from some other areas, be it they are part of the city, to muddy the waters at the commission. We are very fortunate that we have people living who were on the Ethics Commission, who were the original members who established this Ethics Commission, and we should reach out to them initially, generally. We have to stop taking orders from the mayor's office. We have, the Ethics Commission has failed by having a former attorney, city attorney, become a general manager, and yet have the audacity to meet with you all in closed session. So y'all have made very poor judgments, very, very poor judgments. We, the people, appointed to have an ethics commission. We, the people, can go and have a ballot measure. We, the people, must not be left out, but we have been left out because many of you commissioners have not been listening to the people. And I'm not talking any people. You can just verify who calls in. Today I'm the only one. It's a joke. Y'all have people who were on the Fair Political Practices Commission. Y'all know how that works. You'll have others who are attorneys. This is the fourth or fifth attorney we have seen. We have no continuity when it comes to an attorney. So what's going on?
Your 3 minutes has expired. Madam Chair, please stand by as we check for other callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Thank you. Public comment on item number 8 is now closed. Agenda item number 9, presentation and discussion on draft behest payments regulations. Let's call on Mr. Kenning.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. This item is follow-up to last month's discussion on best payment regulations. The changes to the city's best payment rules that the Commission approved in August have since been approved by the Board of Supervisors and signed by the Mayor and went into effect earlier this month. Part of those changes call on the Commission to adopt rules, regulations, and guidelines to implement the city's best payment rules. The item before you has draft regulations that are contained in Attachment 1 and summarized in Attachment 2. These regulations seek to meet the requirements spelled out in the code, as well as clarify other aspects of the rules, particularly those that the Commission has received questions about from city departments and others over the course of the year since the rules initially went into effect in January. These draft regulations are currently agendized for discussion. Assuming no major issues are identified, the plan would be to bring these back in December where the Commission could potentially act. And then they would need to go before the Board of Supervisors for 60 days before becoming effective, assuming the board does not take any action. And yeah, I'm available to answer any questions or comments about specific regulations or the process as a whole. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kenning. Any comments?
Sure. I'd like to start by saying that I really appreciate the overviews and just the summaries that have been provided that were emailed this week. I found them to be very helpful. So that is one thing to start with. I have a few questions and just a few comments about language that I think could help streamline these, but maybe just need more clarity from you all. For Regulation 3.620-4, I just wanted to make a comment about the last line. And this is language that I may have missed in the past, but I think that the word please, the payment being made would please the officer or designated employee. I find that to be very vague. I think that we could maybe, I'd rather us say benefit, and then kind of remove the last part of that line so that it would end at, the payment being made would benefit the officer or designated employee. And that's because I also find the any party at the end very vague. So not sure if there are any comments on that. But I will also add, just to piggyback off of that, that we can maybe, when we talk about benefiting an officer or designated employee, I was thinking maybe we could add like related parties like families or agents or things like that. So that's my first comment.
Yeah, I think I agree on the please language. I could definitely be tightened up. I think the benefit of talking about any party is that, you know, a passive payment could be for the benefit of any party. You could still be advocating for, you know, I'd like you to make this payment because it will benefit the organization that's going to receive the payment or some other cause. So I think it is worth kind of having a broad any party there, but yeah.
Got it. Okay. And then I have a few. So Commissioner Finlove, I don't know if you want to go back and forth.
Please go ahead.
Okay. For regulation 3.620-8, the exceptions, I wanted to talk about exception B, or just the language about bearing the burden of proving. I think that's great. I just think it would be helpful to outline what would be sufficient proof for whomever bears the burden of proving, whether it's emails, texts, date stamped documents, if it was a discussion, if we need an affidavit, if that's a case. But I think that might be helpful because I imagine that different city departments might have different ways of proving or might not necessarily have thought to save that email, or, you know, Outlook kind of deletes things and does funny things. So that is one comment there. I also, actually going backwards to regulation 3.620-7, I was wondering if we should add a timing factor so that, because I imagine that here, with the way it's phrased, if the value of the payments elicited is not explicitly less than 1,000, like at what time, you know, like is it, like should it be at the time it's requested or at the time the final payment is due? Because I can imagine that somebody doesn't know how much they need and just kind of behests a payment, and so I think it might benefit just from having a timing factor. It could be superfluous, but just something I was thinking about. And then for exception D, going back to 3.620-8, I think that for D, the second to last sentence says, or actually the second to last sentence on the page 7 of 18 is any payment accepted using this exception cannot confer a personal benefit on any city officials. I just want to add families or delegated agents. For regulation 3.620-10, I had a question that I might just need a refresher on. But in your illustration, and also in the behested payments overview illustration, this is relevant to Dylan, I think, was in the example. But I'm thinking about how a person is notified. If the department head, for example, is the one that engages in this exchange, and then everybody in that department then becomes an interested, or that interested party becomes an interested party for everybody in that department. How would somebody like Dylan, who was trying to fundraise for their kids' event, know that this person was an interested party for them if there wasn't like an announcement in the office or some sort of list or database? And I know that we have thoughts on like having databases and how practical that is, but
Yeah, the chair. To that, I don't have the examples in front of me. For
Yeah.
Dylan, is a city official who's trying to solicit a payment? Is that?
I'll tell you, I think he's hosting a fundraiser. Give me 1 second. 3 page. Yes, A under, so do you want me to read it?
That's right. I think I get the
I'm
context
happy to do that.
that they're the city official that's making the solicitation.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
And he can't ask, he was asking a group, he's a designated employee at that department, and he's fundraising for his child's school. But he can't ask a permit consultant for a contribution at the school's fundraiser.
Yeah, so in that, I think we're maybe looking into that permit consultant example, because this would be talking more about interested parties that are involved in administrative proceedings. But, yeah, I mean, I think the idea is that if it's something that's kind of a high-level item that's going before an officer, like a department head, that would be the responsibility of the other officers or designated employees to, find out if, the person they're soliciting is an interested party, and, that would be one of the reasons that could make them an interested party. I think there's definitely things that, the department head could, notify the folks within their department of that communication, or if it was something that was going before a commission meeting, all of the employees would have access to those commission documents to be aware of that relationship.
Yeah, I think that's a little tricky, and I think practically, as many of the attorneys on this commission may know, at a firm you get conflicts emails, and everybody gets them. And so maybe this is something that city departments could do, where they could just send out a conflict email, an interested party email, because I think, I feel bad for Dylan. Like, Dylan is just trying to fundraise for his kid and is reaching out to an interested party unknowingly. So just thinking practically about how we can do that without getting anybody in trouble for, being a good person. So those are a few questions. And with that, I actually just one last thing before I hand it off. For regulation 3.620-23 on public appeals, I was wondering if the last two paragraphs are, what happens if the person who's receiving payment doesn't fit a certain category, or what happens if, and I'm wondering if we could just avoid that by specifying who's supposed to receive the payment. Am I making sense there? You look, your face made me, I'm sorry.
Elaborate?
Yes, so for public appeals, if an interested party initiates contact about potentially making let me see here exactly. The last sentence says, the level of engagement the officer or designated employee may have before the conduct rises to the level of soliciting a behested payment partially depends on who is the recipient of the solicited payment. And then it goes on to say, if the recipient of the payment solicited through the public appeal is not the city or a city department, then this happens. If the recipient of the payment solicited through a public appeal is the city or city department, this is what happens. So in order, I feel like there's some gray there, but we could, it's fine to have either or, but if we could just specify who's supposed to receive it. Because why would somebody who's not part of the city or city department be receiving payment that was initiated on behalf of the city?
So the public appeals exception covers payments where the recipient is either, it could be a city or it could be a non-city
I
entity.
see, okay.
And so we're kind
I
of drawing
see.
a distinction there.
Got it, okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Flores-Fang. I think those are all really good points, and I'm really thrilled to see kind of that level of engagement with the language. The issue about the imputation is a really good one, and I'm talking about where the entire department kind of becomes a restricted source or an interested party. Sorry, I'm getting my schemes mixed up. And I wonder whether, I think actually in the restricted source scheme, is there something that talks about if an appeal is made to the public generally, but not targeting anyone in particular, then it doesn't trigger the prohibitions? Then maybe in a different scheme, but there's that concept. Maybe it's about fundraising or campaign literature.
That's in regard to vested payments and interested parties. That's the regulation we were just talking about is adding to the public appeals exception, which is for solicitation of vested payments. So if you're making a solicitation to a group of more than 20 or more people, or in writing, I believe it's 200 or more, or making a televised remark for public appeal, that's exempt from being a solicitation. What the regulations that we were just talking about are trying to clarify is what happens sort of following that public appeal. If somebody calls and says, oh, I heard the mayor give that radio address, I want to follow up and, give money now. The last regulation there is trying to, add clarity to like how much of that conversation can kind of happen subsequent to a public appeal before it becomes a solicitation on its own.
Right. No, that makes sense, and thank you for that. I wonder whether the hypothetical that Commissioner Flores-Fang was talking about, where Dylan is soliciting a group of folks, so if that's more than 25 people or some threshold, then it doesn't trigger the, does not trigger kind of the bar that might otherwise be in place?
Correct, yeah. If in the situation, if it was, I think Dylan's maybe doing fundraising for a child's school program, if that was, being made in public to a group of more than 20 people, that would fall under the public appeals exception.
Okay, and so that may address part of the commissioner's concern.
Maybe we can just add that to the example, that way.
And I agree that the word benefit is probably much better than the word please. For like, I can imagine lawyers trying to argue what that means down the road in a lawsuit. I don't have any specific comments. One thing that would be helpful, I think, going forward is, to the extent that there were modifications made to get to this point in response to concerns by city partners or other offices, we don't need the back and forth. I don't care who said what, but it'd be helpful to know what the changes were to address what concerns, because that would give me comfort to know that the whole point of this is to make it more workable for the city to work with partners and do things that benefit the city. And I think it would help me know that we've done that by understanding what were the concerns that were addressed. But that's it. But I know you did a ton of work on this, and I'm really, really grateful for that.
Any other comments? If not, moderator, please check and see if there's any public comment on this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are callers in the queue who wish to comment on item number 9, presentation and discussion of process to develop behested payment regulations. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have 2 callers in the queue. Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Again, Francisco da Costa. It is sickening that somebody from the mayor's office now is mudding things at the Ethics Commission, much like you all accommodated the general manager from the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission in closed session. This must stop. If you've read Proposition E, that language is very clear. Was passed in a ballot measure, only for you all to make amendments. We do not need the mayor's office or anybody from the Board of Supervisors to come and muddy things in the Ethics Commission. If you all don't clearly see this, you will not see anything. Let me tell you very clearly, it took the FBI, after 15 years, to zero in on some culprits. And only the FBI can follow the money, not the Ethics Commission, not the Sunshine, not the Controller's Office, not the City Attorney, only the FBI. This matter has to be run by the FBI because we want to know why this behest thing is connected to the contractors. Why? Why are the contractors forced to do some outreach and provide public benefits? Why? The contractor must do the project, be it vertical or horizontal. Why get them involved in the benefits? Why get tipping point come and you allow the gentleman to speak twice? You want to allow me to speak twice? I'm watching y'all. Don't act like a bunch of buffoons. Stop mudding the waters at the Ethics Commission. Just stay in your own place. We have the legislative branch, we have the executive branch, and we used to have the city administrator. It was independent, but that was brought under the executive branch. So we have no checks and balances. And then we have, on top of that, some of the commissioners who toe the line whatever the mayor says. Nobody from the mayor's office should be at the Ethics Commission mudding the waters. Let me make that very, very clear. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. We all have a conscience. We all have a conscience. We know
The
this
3
is
minutes
wrong.
has expired. Please stand by as we go to caller number 2. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Debbie Lerman from the San Francisco Human Services Network. The proposed regulations need some more thought and clarity around their impact on the ability of nonprofit representatives who serve on city commissions to raise funds for their organizations. San Francisco benefits from the expertise of community-based nonprofits who participate in policy development and oversight through commissions. And many commissions require such expertise. For example, the Homelessness Oversight Commission that just passed has seats for persons who provide services related to homelessness, work with homeless families or youth, or have expertise in mental health or substance abuse service delivery. And these same commissioners often have a responsibility to assist in raising funds for their nonprofits and may even be the executive director who leads their organization's fundraising efforts. The recent amendments to the legislation have been helpful in mitigating some of those concerns, but if the regulations are unnecessarily prescriptive, they can create a chilling effect on nonprofit staff's desire and ability to serve the city in those capacities. In the regulations specifically, there's impacts on this issue from the rules on soliciting behested payments, indirect solicitations, and public appeals. For example, the proposed regulation that bars soliciting behested payments if it's under the control of the officer defines control as payments where the officer has authority to authorize, command, order, require, guide, or administer the payment, even if the officer plays no role in soliciting the payment or even has knowledge of it. That donor might even be a prior longtime supporter of the nonprofit. And so therefore this regulation would create challenges to the nonprofit raising funds for their work and barriers between staff and potential donors. It should be possible to create an ethical wall between the nonprofit staff person who serves on a commission and the work of their development staff in raising funds for the organization, just as law firms have to create ethical walls sometimes when one attorney has a conflict of interest. The indirect solicitation regulation refers to barring commissioners from directing staff to solicit from a group of parties that may contain an interested party. That language is very broad and vague. For example, the commissioner could not tell their staff at the nonprofit to seek donations from tech companies or real estate developers if just one of those
Your 3
companies
minutes has expired.
was.
Please stand by as we check to see if there's any further callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Public comment for item number 9 is now closed. Item number 10, which is the proposed closed session item, is continued to the December meeting. So let's call on agenda item number 11, which is discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. suggestions, comments from colleagues? No?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Bush? You have any? None? Public comment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if we are now taking public comment on agenda item number 11. Please stand by as we check for callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Thank you. Public comment is closed for item number 11. Now, agenda item number 12, additional opportunity for public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda pursuant to Ethics Commission Bylaws, Article 7, Section 2. Moderator, do we have anyone else on the?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Please stand by as we check to see if there's any callers in the queue. Members of the public who are already online and wish to provide public comment under item number 12 on matters not appearing on the agenda should now dial *3 or raise your hand in WebEx if you have not already done so to be added to the public comment line. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. And next item 13, which is adjournment. Thank you all. Thank you to members of the public, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.